sharing
I will be sharing the slides after the talk as well.
But you're not streaming it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you share it on Twitter?
I can. Pardon? Did I share it on Twitter?
Yes.
I probably am automatically sharing it on Twitter. So I probably actually just shared the second stream again.
Yeah, so if you want to check now, it should be streaming for this session, I guess.
Yeah.
It's on slides. We're going to find out on slides.
Yep.
This is an introduction slide.
Oh, okay. Because normally we actually do the introduction, so we don't do the stream yet.
Yeah. Should we do that?
Pardon?
Yes. Let's go. Right. So basically, what I wanted to talk about was that I want to take everybody through the way I do this, because I've done a few of these modules before, and I thought it'd be something cool to show people. I've never done a talk before, and I thought I wanted to get in on something where I can talk about it. And I've done a few modules for this framework. It's all open source. It's on GitHub if you want to have a go yourself later on. So basically, we'll get going. Okay. So who am I? My name is Paul. This is up here. I do support development as my job. Part-time CTFer. I also part of Hackspace and play games. My Twitter handle and GitHub repos are there if anybody wants to follow me and check out some of the things I've written or contributed to. But yeah, let's get going. So why WordPress? We were talking a little bit about this before, weren't we? So WordPress itself is responsible for 30% of websites on the internet now, something like that. And obviously with that comes a lot of plugins people develop for it, and obviously when people develop things, they don't always develop them in the right way. So there's all these thousands of plugins for this CMS product that people might not know how to set up. So obviously this is how we start going to penetration testing stuff. Because when people set things up incorrectly, it leaves holes in them. From them holes we can sort of use them to gain access to the systems or whatever. So this talks about basically taking one of the vulnerability disclosures on, there's a big massive database full of them. We're going to take what they call proof of concept URL, and then we're going to go from there, and we're then going to make that, first of all, make a module that reproduces the actual output of the example, and then we're going to sort of retrofit it with our code so that the eXpliot framework can then inject other payloads and stuff. But I'll get onto that in a little while. So what is the WordPress eXpliot framework? It was written in Ruby by this guy here. Obviously that's not his real face. He is a member of the Grey Hats as well, but he couldn't be here tonight because, you know, weather. It is, like I said before, it is open source, so if you want to go and get it after this and you want to play around and contribute to it, you're more than welcome to. These slides will be up later as well, so if you want to get the URLs from there, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so in the link I sent everybody with the OVAs and stuff, there is also a document in there. That will tell you how to get set up both the target VM and the development VM. I did send this out a couple of days ago, so in case anybody needs to sort of get set up then. Is everybody set up now?
Yeah, I just got a problem with credentials because the credential which you gave in that file didn't work.
Which file?
In that PDF. You said the credential for one of VMs.
Yeah, the WPX dev. You don't log on to the other one.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
because the idea is that other one is what we're going to compromise from the WordPress plugin.
Okay.
Okay. So in there it does tell you on the WPXF dev machine, you need to go into the host file, and you need to add the WP target and its IP address, which you should get based on whichever one you booted up first on your virtual network. It should, your host on the network, it'll either be 101 or 102.
I've got different IP.
Okay. What IP addresses have you got?
So 192.168.56.4.
Yeah. Okay. So .4 is, so if you go into your preferences and you go to the network options of your virtual host adapter, it should tell you where your DHCP range starts. And then from there you can make the guess that if your dev machine is like say .4, then your other one's probably either .3 or .5. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just got.
Okay, so the easiest way to sort of figure out where it is if you open Firefox, and you can go to either .4 or .5 or .3, and it should come up with a website that says I love dogs.
Yeah,
I don't love dogs, I'm not really a dog person, but it's just better than just say this is basic WordPress website. Okay, you guys alright over there with those? You shouldn't have to sort of check anything out or anything like that because it's all set up in the dev VM. If you open Atom, it will probably open right up to where you need to be in /dev/WordPress exploit framework.
Yeah, I'm going to find cost.
Alright. Cool. So how's it going? You guys all right there? You set up yet, Tim? Oh, cool. I tried to do it as one, but when I tried to put it on my pen drive, it was over 4 gig, so then it just crashed.
Nothing sticky about your IP addresses, is it?
No, I did have a problem with the target one. It does try to connect to something for about 2 minutes and then times out. But then once it does that, it should be fine because it was fine when I tested it on my machine and then on my laptop to make sure that it did the same behaviour. Because obviously I didn't want to do that.
Control X. And sudo, if you want to.
And nano or just?
Sudo nano.
Do you guys need any help there or on your right? I mean, it is a workshop, so if you need help, just give me a shout and I'll try and give you a hand. Because otherwise, I'm just sitting here waiting for everybody to get set up. If you guys are already set up, you can. Should be in the PDF how to do it in is it version 5.1 because there's 5.1 and 5.3 is a little different.
If you Control X and then press Y. That's it. Now we should be able to do it.
This is for when everybody's set up. Oh, I'm getting followers. Oh. I've been on like 100 forever. And then Mad Rush tweeting about this, and then I got 4 more.
4 more?
4 more, yeah. I'll be catching up Jay soon. 4:50, is this something like that? Is everybody set up? Tim?
Yes. Carry on with filming.
Excuse me. Is it not working for you? What's up?
We try with the live
No, it's purposes. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's Mac.
Can you check if you're
Think about that. For everybody put Linux laptops, so we have to the Windows if you need hypervisor, that can be installed. Yeah, well, everybody else uses the M, well, you don't install. Sorry. No worries. But yeah, so yeah. So I can send them in the papers.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
Obviously, the HTTP will be assigning sequentially, so whichever you switch off. Yeah, okay. You guys alright there now?
actually we have a problem with cannot seem to find the cache.
Alright. Yep. Okay. Can I?
Yeah.
Have you got the other machine running?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not free, sorry.
That's right, yeah.
So if you just not free of that, it's going to look weird because it's not something to be like that.
We can just provide it to the host file.
Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, put that through that. Is everybody all to speed now? Cool. Okay, obviously, slide goes without saying, don't do this on machines you don't own or have permission to do it on, because that's illegal. So, got to put it in there. This workshop's for learning purposes, I guess. Right, okay, so the plugin that's vulnerable that I've installed on the WordPress framework is the custom permalinks plugin. If you see the link at the bottom is the actual link to the disclosure in the WordPress vulnerability database, which also includes a proof of concept. So if you can visit this URL here and it'll show you the URLs to enter once you're logged in as an admin. If you go to the page in Firefox, the WordPress target, if you set up your host file, you'll get, if you go to the WordPress target address and go to the login page, the login credentials should be saved for you. But it's just WP admin and password again, if it's not. But then that brings on to the next bit. So if you look at the proof, this is the proof of concept URL on that disclosure page. So at the top here is just obviously the WordPress, this is all standard stuff up to here. Obviously this you replace with your actual address or whatever. And then this is the red bit there, in point 2, that's our vulnerable plugin. And then obviously at the end is the script that we're going to put in there to test that code execution works. And I think that means it's time for a demo. does indeed. Right. Bear with me 1 second.
Which port was it on the website?
Sorry?
Which port was it on the website?
What do you mean, what port? It's just on port 18. It's the IP address, which will either be .4 or .5, depending on what your setup is. Where's that? Oh. So this is me rather shakily typing in the URL to test it. As you can see, I did it a couple of times first to sort of make sure it works. It's a bit slow loading, I'm afraid. I don't know how. But there you go. So then that shows us then we can execute code on that website, which means it's probably open to other things as well. So do you understand why that's happening? Like, why it's executing that code? Sorry? Yeah, we posted it into the unsanitized param at the top. Okay, so that. Right, so now we're going to write that as a plugin in the WordPress exploit framework. Like I said before, the way I do it is I take the proof of concept and try to replicate the way it works first. And you don't have to do that. If you're confident enough to that you'll get it right, you just go for it. But this is the way I do it. So yeah, so to do that, you've got to branch from the master repo. Have you guys done Git before? Yeah?
I've done.
Okay, cool. So once we've done that, have you all opened the source code, by the way? It is on the VM. So if you open Atom, it'll be in there. If you want to go through it in command line, it's in the /dev/WordPress exploit framework. It takes some time if you want to sort of have a little poke through some of the other modules to see how they sort of fit together. Then once you've done that, you can go to their website for the documentation. We're not going to go through all the documentation, obviously, because it's only a small workshop. But on the GitHub page, there is, in the wiki, a section called Introduction to Writing Modules. So we go to that. Are you guys doing alright? No? What's up?
No, I'm just connecting the method.
Is it, is it working now? Or you on Wi-Fi?
Just connecting.
Connecting, right, okay.
Where did you say put the final policy?
In the command, so it's in /dev
Yeah.
/WordPress-exploit-framework. If you want to edit it in Vim, that's on there with all the fancy plugins and everything.
So it's actually pretty simple.
No, sorry, not like that. Hold it. Sorry. That's my fault, I did say slash dev.
That's going to say what
It's a trick question, obviously.
Yeah. Picks up the URL and just that's the script. The URL code encoded. So
Everybody happy with that now? Or I'm not expecting you've written the module yet or anything, you just wanted to make sure everybody's going through it at the same sort of pace. So as I mentioned before, it is written in Ruby, so if you've not done any Ruby, it's not going to be too difficult to sort of see what's happening from, if you look at some of the other modules, if you've done any programming before. It's quite similar, although it's not the same as Python. It's easy to read, like Python is. All the gems and everything are already installed, because that's a headache in itself. So I thought I'd set it all up nice for everybody. Because when you clone this yourselves, you're gonna have to do the install bundler, and then bundle install gems from the folder, and then it'll go and get all the dependencies. Some of the earlier commits for it, people when they tried to run it, they were just submitting issues saying that it's got no missing dependencies, and the first thing it says in the install thing is run the bundle to get all the dependencies. The amount of people that missed that off, it's crazy. You alright? Are you doing any reading now? Maybe.
What was the last bit of the URL?
Oh, sorry.
It's
just get WPXF.com.
Right.
So it's fairly well documented as well. He did spend a lot of time doing documentation as well as features. It does work quite similar to Metasploit if you ever use Metasploit, where you can sort of specify various different options for your module, and then obviously options for your payload, which I think is the sort of the way you wanted it to be in a similar vein.
yeah.
So if you've used Metasploit before, you'll be kind of familiar with how it's going to actually work.
Similar concept.
Yeah, so you'd take your attack, your victim IP or whatever, you put that in the host portion, and then you specify your module first, and then what we're going to do in a minute anyway, because the Dex demo. Set up your XSS server. It then sends it the malicious link, calls back to the server to serve up the other script, and then that executes and runs various things. We can actually have a look at that in a minute as well if you want. Stretch this out a little bit longer. Yep. Okay. Is everybody okay with that now? Have you all started your super fancy modules? What are you all calling them? No? Right, so this is like a breakdown of how you would write a module. There are other bits above and below, above this, not below it. But I pointed out the main sort of things that most of the modules have in common. So they have something to check if the plugin is vulnerable. You specify the version it's fixed in, and then what the module is called, then this particular plugin will go to the README and parse the README so that if it finds a version number and that version number is lower or lower than that number, then it will return true, otherwise it will return either false or can't identify. Sorry, can you? Oh, sorry. Sorry, technical. Is that better? Cool. I was going to turn this then, but that's not going to do anything, is it? So if you look at some of the code, you'll see these modules anyway, but this was me writing this particular module for this. I haven't checked it in. If any of you guys want to beat me to it and submit to this, you're more than welcome. I'll hold off for a couple of days and then you guys can do it. It's open source software. You got to contribute. Right. So so that covers the check method. But then we've got these three here. So this here is the method that'll generate our link. Now, if you've never seen like any Ruby before, you probably won't know what these are. But basically, they just signify that you used whatever the return value of either the variable or the function is in that. So obviously, you can see that vulnerable URL there is actually this up here. So if you check out the documentation, you'll see that normalize URL is a particular function, and it'll show you how that works. So basically what it does is it passes in the regular admin URL for the WordPress sort of site, so which is normally whatever.com/wp-admin. So that instead of having to write that all the time, you can just use this. And when you normalize it, you can specify extra parameters, and every time you specify a new parameter, it will put the slashes in for you. So obviously at the end you'd have your PHP file, but then if you've got any directories in between, you put them in as separate parameters. Does that make sense? So then this bit here, obviously, this is our script. At the moment this is a static script, which will just replicate the functionality of that proof of concept URL that we showed earlier on. So it'll just show alert 1 or alert 0 or whatever. When we come to write the actual code, we will replace that with one of these here, like this, which will then either put in one or the other payloads that we specify in the actual code. Is anybody not understanding, or is everybody okay with that? Okay. I think we've got demo 2 now. Yeah. So demo 2. So this is where we run it. So we navigate to the directory, and then just ruby WPXF.rb. And then as you can see, there's 51 auxiliary modules, currently 259 exploits and 7 payloads. The payloads, what I was saying before about with like the reverse TCP and also all the commands, and there are other other payloads as well, but we won't go into those. Sorry? You following? Ah, cool. Okay. Well, if you've written the eXpliot already, you'll be able to follow the next bit, but if you've not, you won't.
Right. It's very similar to writing stuff in eXpliot.
Yeah, well, I think that was the idea. Okay, so when you want to specify an exploit, you do use exploit / and then the name of it, like that. Then obviously, when you do that, you can then set various options like you can in Metasploit. So the host is obviously the target machine. In our case, it's WP target. XSS host is a little different. The XSS host is our machine, because that's what it's going to create the link to call back to our machine. These options at the moment you don't necessarily need to worry about, because they're actually for the next bit, but you have to put them in, otherwise it won't work. This is why it might be a bit confusing if you do it this way, rather than just writing the module in one go. I just wanted to sort of show the way I do it. As you can see here, we've set the payload as exec, so that payload will then execute whatever the command we specify is against the target. That won't work yet because we've got that static payload, static script instead of the one that is generated dynamically. That's for demo 3. But I'll just show you that it will in fact replicate the original URL, well, or something of the same fashion. So it generates us a malicious link there. You probably can't see the end of it because of that, but So as you can see, it's URL encoded the Angular brackets and stuff, but that's not necessarily a problem. So that, if you remember, if you go back to the other slide, you'll see that obviously it's the same payload pretty much, but instead of it being just the brackets, it's URL encoded them, because some plugins will escape certain characters, so obviously URL encoding can get around that. And then it goes through it. And then again we've got the code execution. Okay, so from that, if we look at the documentation, we're going to replace that static script with this script, this function here. I was going to turn that around again then, isn't it? So basically, what that will do then is when we type those commands in, like I said before, with the set payload and then the different types of payload, it will replace those, rather than being that static script, which was alert 1 for our test execution. It will either have the command that we send and then it will return, or we can do things like I said with an interpreter payload, or even just a reverse TCP. So these are some of the options. As I said before, it is a bit like Metasploit, if you've ever used it. Yeah? Okay, you're familiar with Metasploit. So these here in green, these are the module's options. These ones down at the bottom in purple, you don't get till you've specified a payload. Obviously with the command payload, it's just command. And then, sorry, the exec payload, you can issue a command to the machine then. And then it will run that, and then it will output to the screen whatever it returns. So, you know, like cat, ETSC, whatever, or ls on a directory just to see what's in it. I just chose who am I to see, because then you can see what the server's running as. As I just mentioned, a couple of different types of payloads. Exec, which will execute Linux commands on the target machine, or reverse TCP, which will set up a reverse TCP connection from the WordPress site to your machine. Again, if you've used Metasploit, you'll be familiar with how that works. So if you've done any CTFing, you've probably done a reverse shell of some kind. Okay. And then it's demo 3. All about these demos. If I could go the right way, what's going on now? No. I'm stuck on that screen now. Wait a sec. I've lost my mouse. Of course I have. So this is, once you've finished the module, we run it against obviously the target website again. You guys know what you're doing right there, yeah? You're doing right? Not stuck or anything?
No. Jay says fine on me.
Oh, hi Jay.
Yeah.
Goofy grin on my face now.
But,
Goofy grin on my face now.
yeah. He also says we're never running the talk again.
We're never running the talk again?
Yeah.
Oh, is that how it is?
Because we're not getting invited to Twitter followers.
Don't follow Jay. So as you can see, we set the command again from the exec payload, but this time we also ran the check function, which as you can see returned that the target does appear to be vulnerable. Obviously we could find that out if we just ran it anyway, but you might not want to run it without checking that it's vulnerable or not. Obviously, because if it isn't vulnerable, you might get seen by some kind of log or something when you're trying to throw random stuff at plugins or whatever. Then when we run it, we get a little bit of a different looking URL this time than we did previous, because it's got magic stuff in it now. So as you can see this time, it's encoded. Again, you can see the script tag finishes here and starts up here, and then it evaluates the string there, and then obviously that's all. Obviously you probably can't see that from there, or you definitely can't see that from over there, but I'm just sort of letting you know what it is. Again, it's another payload that we've specified. In this case.
Is it Unicode? Because I can't actually read it.
Sorry?
Is it Unicode?
No, it's just ASCII, I think. But there are different encoding methods in there. That was one of the other options on this payload, because there was either, well, excuse me, there was the command you can run, and then if you're encoding it or not.
Yeah, it's quite useful in switching codings sometimes.
Yeah. And then,
Mainly
sorry?
extension value.
Yeah, and obviously here was when we started before, when I said about the XSS host setting, it's actually started a web server on port 1990 on this machine. So what this will do is it will go get those files. You know, like when you set up like an HTTP server and yeah, that kind of thing. So it's pulling those files back to execute them to do various bits and bats. I just realised it's a slide missing. And then as you can see, it says the incoming request was received by this machine. It then created a new user on the WordPress VM, stopped the server, then logged in as that user, created a new plugin, which it does here, executes that plugin, and then returns us that command that we specified, which in this case was who am I. Obviously you could do other commands if you wanted. You could do the reverse shell command, but there's a reverse TCP option, so you probably wouldn't want to do that. And then what we're going to do this time is we're going to show the reverse TCP connection. So we can just change the payload because we've got everything else set up. Obviously then we have to set the local host that it's going to connect back to, and then the port number. And then we can run that. Gives us again a different URL, which then we follow. And then you can look here, we've got shell access. See, go like that. And that's about it. There are a couple of flags on there, on the machine, if you want to get on and find them shortly. So we'll finish the slides first and then people can have a little bash. Sorry? No pun intended. That was, and I've not practiced that in the mirror or anything. You know, it was purely coincidental. This is going to go back to the beginning, isn't it? No, it isn't. Awesome. So once you've finished actually writing it, you need to make sure it conforms to the style of the rest of the modules. To do that, we use Rubocop. If you've done any Ruby, like you'll probably be familiar with Rubocop. So basically, the idea is once we finish our module, we want there to be no offences. We specified there is in the root of the WordPress exploit framework folder a YML file which has got the guidelines in it, if you like, and then obviously you point to the module that you've written, and it will run the style guides against it, and then it'll tell if there are any offences. In this case there isn't, because I did it a couple of times and then took a screenshot of when there wasn't. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me ramble on for about an hour. And now you guys are going to try and get those 2 flags, because there's a prize. Good luck. You have to get both flags though. I've done that again.